Hi, this is Brian Poole from National Trail Local Schools. Today's PD is on how to scan documents using a scanner in the school to turn handouts, books, whatever, into PDF forms. And those PDFs, when you initially scan them, are just really scans of pictures. The next step then is to turn them into text so that things like screen readers and dictionary tools can use those more readily. This really is to get it so that we can use screen readers for all kids and all grades so that no matter what their reading level is, they'll be able to get the content material that we're looking at. So today we're going to talk about scanning first, and then the act of OCRing, and then finally get into how to use some of those screen readers. Hi, this is Brian Poole. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to digitize handouts and textbooks for students. It's a really easy process, and it's something for some students on IEPs or possibly everyone in your school. If you're doing a one-to-one, you might want to make sure you know how to do. So when we're talking about digitizing handbooks or handouts, we're going to do it with our printer. So we're already going to our printers every day to copy those handouts for some students. And most current printers have the ability to scan documents as a PDF. Some printer suppliers, renters, contracts disable that functionality so they can make you pay more to have it. If that's the case, get a new supplier, because that's ridiculous, because it's already built in. That's what we did to make sure that we had that functionality, but it's just an add-on if that's the case and you don't see this functionality, but most places it's part of it. When it comes to scanning, there's going to be two things that we're going to use. We're going to use address books and network drives. Address books are for frequently used addresses, and they're really easy to modify. So if you're an office person that's scanning to PDF a lot, you want to make sure your address is on the frequently used list, or any staff member that's doing it, or in the case of a special needs student, you might have somebody you want their address in there so you can scan to them really easily while you're doing your copies for the rest of your students. For network drives, that's something that needs to be set up by your tech staff, and those are really for larger scans. When it comes to something like a textbook, which we scan here by chapter to keep them small, they still can sometimes exceed the limitation that will go out in an email. So we set up network folders for that, and that network drive is shared to everyone on the staff so they can easily scan their document to a network drive and then go and fetch it when they get back to their computer. So those are the two things we're going to really talk about doing here today. Now, this demo is with our copier, but all of our models are slightly different, and they all have the basic same functionality when it comes to that. So when you come up to your copier, you're just going to use it just like you do, with one slight difference, and that's you're going to send it to an image. So you can do this right after you're done with your regular copies. You put it in just the same as if you were doing a handout package and making sure it's in there snugly. Then when you go down to make your copy, one of the options you're going to see is the ability to image send. It's normally set to copy, but you're going to do an image send instead, which means it's going to make it an image from that thing you're copying. So you hit the image send button, and just like you do when you're copying, you have to tell it if it's a two-sided document. So in the case of our printer, we go to the condition settings and we go to the original button to tell it the original is a two-sided original. So when you push on there, you just see that there's a two-sided option, so you want to make sure it knows that it's going to do both sides of your document. You say OK, and then basically you're done as soon as you tell it where it's going to go. Now, what we're seeing here is the address book for this particular copier. There are 4 people on the frequently used list that automatically show up, but then there's also that alphabetical list that you'll see down there below. So if another staff member wants to use it, they'll have to go to their alphabet button. If I'm going to use it, I can go right there. And if I was going to do a network drive, I'll show you how to do that next. So I just hit copy, and then it goes through, makes that handout, and sends it off to the email address that I just specified it to. Even in the case of an extremely large textbook, it still only takes about 30 seconds to digitize it. So it's something that you can do once and you're done, and you've got that digital copy of that particular item. Now, when it comes to doing textbooks, you obviously aren't going to want to go and flip through all the pages of a textbook, not to mention the fact that you would get really bad copies doing it that way. So in the case of a textbook, you're going to have to sacrifice one, and you're going to want to separate it by chapters when you do that. So the first thing you're going to do you're going to want to make sure you got one of your better textbooks that doesn't have a lot of writing in it, or a brand new one. You want to take off the binding on the left-hand side, which really is easy. You just slice down the left-hand side, and then it just pulls apart. And once you pull those chapters apart, you're going to want to scan them by chapter. So using a nice industrial size paper cutter is your best friend here. You're going to want to make sure you get a nice even slice. And I wouldn't do it with one of those cheap ones that some of us have in our classrooms. This one's got a nice lever that puts pressure on it and makes it a perfect cut when you do it. So hopefully you've got one of those accessible in your teacher center that you'll be able to go and cut off all the glue binding at one time. Now you're going to scan this chapter just like you did with an individual handout. The only difference is it's slightly larger and the file's going to be bigger, so you may need to scan it to a network drive instead. So the only difference when we're doing it to a network drive is you have to find the drive. It has to be pre-set up by your tech staff on the printer settings. In our case, we've got one called Book PDF Scans that when we select it to there, it's just going to go to a network drive that I have access to back on my PC. This really is not required for some documents, but as soon as you get pretty big, you're going to see that you're going to need to do it a little different to a network folder. So those things need to be set up by your tech staff. Really, they only take a minute or two to do, and it's a one-time setup. In the case of our district, we have one folder that everybody uses, everybody has full access to, so you just go get it and copy it off of there when you're done to your own PC. In the case of a larger district, tech staff may want to do a separate folder for each scanner or for each teacher center, so those teachers don't get confused with too many documents in too many other places. Hi, this video is on how to OCR a document. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition, and basically it's how to take a file that we've scanned with one of the district copiers and OCR it with Adobe Acrobat, or basically to turn what are pictures, because when we scan we've basically just scanned a picture, into something that we can use in our classroom that's able to be read by a character reader or anything else. I'm looking at a book scan on the book scan folder that you can scan your stuff to in a folder called Street Law that I didn't do, somebody else did it. I'm going to go ahead and open one of these. So if I look at this really big one and I right click on it, normally I'm opening with Adobe Reader, but if I open with Adobe Acrobat Reader instead, I'm sorry, with Adobe Acrobat, I take that back, with Adobe Acrobat instead, I'm going to have some features that I don't normally have. So here's this one called Street Law, and you can see if I try to grab any of these things, it's just a picture. That's all this is. And the process of OCRing is simple. I go over here to Tools, and I go down to the text recognition right here, and I just click on the AA this file, and then you're going to have a little pop-up here that says, hey, what do you want to do it with in English? All the defaults are good. You just say OK, and now it's going to go through this entire document and turn what were pictures into all text. So now if you've got a student that you're trying to use UDL with, or you just want them to be able to search the document, you want them to be able to screen read the document, whatever, now all those pictures are going to be text. You can see this is a fairly large document. It doesn't take very long to OCR. It's over halfway through it just while I'm sitting here talking. And then once it's done, the next thing is, depending on how big it is, you're going to want to do this no matter what. You're going to want to resave this as a reduced size PDF, because you saw this one was huge. It was 14 meg, and now Once I'm done, it's almost finished. This chapter 1 of street law is now an OCR document, and these spots where it was just pictures before now are all text. So if I go through here, this is all text that I can grab now. When I'm finished, I'm gonna go and say File, Save As, and I'm gonna save it as, File, Save As Other. I'm gonna save it as reduced size PDF. And it's going to have a little pop-up that says, do you want to optimize? Sure, yes. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to retain all existing formats. Just an OK. And since this isn't really mine, you can see it's already dropped by half. We're going to go ahead and just save this, replace that file, and it started out at 14 meg. And now this file, we'll see what size it is once I close this window, because it's reducing all the images to just sizes that you can look at and see, as opposed to photo quality or whatever quality they were scanned out when this document was originally scanned. And now I'm going to close this, and we've gone from 14 meg down to 2.5. Now when I open this file, I have the ability to grab text, which I couldn't grab before, and if I want to use a screen reader on this one, I can go down to a section that maybe I can grab a screen reader for. If I grab that same text now, I would be able to, if I open this up in Chrome, to use our screen reader and read through that as well. So that's all it takes to OCR a document.